Greetings and welcome to the second episode of our Oblivion House Mod Hunters series, where we look at 3 very different house mods for Oblivion in 3 different categories. As always, I'm your host Dark Elf Guy, and today we'll be looking at some more remote and rustic houses, from small farms to mountaintop estates and hidden cavern homes. As always, you can find download links for each of these mods down in the video description below, so why don't we just go ahead and get started with our popular house mod, which this time around is Millstone Farm by Korana. Another house mod by a very talented Morrowind and Oblivion modder. Korana has made a ton of amazing mods for the Elder Scrolls games over the years, like Solstein Castle or Pearl Palace from Morrowind, and she's made a ton of really great house mods for Oblivion as well, and Millstone Farm here is probably one of the more popular of those house mods. Now, Millstone Farm is a lovely little rustic home along the Reed River in the Nibini Basin of eastern Cyrodiil, and it's really a very scenic location with beautiful gardens and ivy climbing up the walls of this old millstone house, including a number of outbuildings like a outhouse naturally. And something to mention, the house isn't exactly free. You're going to have to do a quest and do a little bit of dungeon delving before you can get access to this beautiful little home. And this is a feature-complete farm, including a number of typical farm buildings, such as a sort of workshop and barn, where you can chop wood and work in an outdoor smithy. And it has to be said, every part of this farm is extraordinarily detailed, from the cobwebs in the barn to the farm tools, decorating the walls, and the buckets hanging from the animal pens. Everything feels very lived in, like you can imagine that someone just left these things here naturally. And speaking of animal pens, you'll find a number of animals on this farm, such as pigs, cows, sheep, and even a horse for you to use. And one of the other aspects of this farm is a lovely vegetable and fruit garden with a ton of produce growing here, from strawberries to corn and even apples from apple trees. And this also doubles as a sort of ingredient garden for alchemy purposes. And much like the rest of the farm, the landscaping here is just beautiful. You've got flowers, you've got trees sort of closing in on the garden, making it feel like an enclosed space. It's really just lovely. And the Millstone Farm is fairly isolated. It's a decent commute to the nearest city, Shadenhall, and a fair distance from the Imperial City, but luckily Millstone Farm does have a map marker for easy transportation back and forth from civilization, and it is kind of a remote location there. And the interior of the main house here is, again, quite lovely, with a small but scenic entry hall full of flowers, vines, and some seating next to a cozy fireplace. And there's also a dog here, and this is a companion dog you can have follow you around. And up here on the upper level hallway, you'll find a small study space and painting alcove, and all of it is just really quite well decorated. There's one master bedroom in this house, which is a fairly small, but like everything else here, it's just quite beautiful looking with flowers and vines, and it's really just a very scenic setting. And down below on the lower level, you can find a cluttered and detailed dining area with a full-featured kitchen, and really everything about this house just shouts cozy. Really, it's a very warm and atmospheric setting. And again, it just sort of feels like it's sort of lived in, like someone's been living here for a while. And there's also an attic, which includes some storage space, and also a couple of companion beds for any companions you might have, and hopefully they don't mind the cobwebs so much. It is a bit dusty up here. And there's also a small magic lab up here in the attic, including books for both enchanting and spellmaking, and there's also an alchemy set up here that works a lot like the at-home alchemy mod. Simply click on it to begin making potion brews, and there's also some name storage up here for organizing ingredients, potions, or anything else that you might have that you might want to organize in a semi-sorted manner. And much like the rest of the house, this is fairly close-quartered and a small space, and it's all very cozy-like. And going back to the kitchen for a second, it's worth pointing out that Millstone Farm has a rather extensive number of small tasks that you can do, like washing dishes, and you can also craft a variety of items, like salads in the kitchen, or cook entire meals using the cooking pot over here, though all of this will naturally require a number of different components. And there's also a bathroom on the second level, again with the characteristic cozy decorations, and you can wash your hands up here, or wash work clothes, or even take a bath, though again you're going to need a few items to do really anything. And really, Millstone Farm is a fully functional farm with all the chores and tasks you can possibly imagine being on a farm, like creating soap or making wine, and all these tasks require going out, gathering items, and then crafting more items, so you get the full farming, self-sufficient experience. It's kind of like the old British TV comedy show, The Good Life, only in an actual rural setting instead of a suburban setting. And speaking of The Good Life, that's an absolutely fantastic show. I would highly recommend watching it. And of course, there's some Oblivion crafting components that you can find out here in the barn, including the ability to repair items. And all in all, Millstone Farm is an absolutely lovely small rustic farmhouse with some fantastic landscaping and a lot of features to keep you happy, like a map marker, Oblivion crafting, alchemy station, and enchanting and spellmaking books. And if you enjoy living in a rustic rural lifestyle-like setting, this is definitely the house mod for you. It includes everything that you might imagine having to do on a farm, and it's really a just very immersive experience. Next up, we're taking a look at our new house mod, which this time around is Pinewood Manor by Themage. And this mod was actually just released in July of last year, and Pinewood Manor is a sort of small estate located up in the Jarl Mountains to the north of Shadenhall, and it's basically a central manor done in the Bruma style, surrounded by a square-shaped estate with some small gardens, walkways, and some really lovely views of the surrounding Jarl Mountains especially. You can really see a lot from up here, and there's some really nice seating to truly take in the views, and it's especially lovely when it just starts to snow, for example. And before you can gain access to the Pinewood Manor here, you're going to have to buy it from the land caretaker, and this will set you back about 20,000 gold, which is a fair hefty sum. And Pinewood Manor is in a pretty isolated location, it has to be said. It's far up in the mountains, and the closest city, Shadenhall, is a long commute away, and it's nowhere near the Imperial City. Luckily though, Pinewood Manor does come with a map marker for convenience purposes. And after you buy the manor, the land caretaker will actually stay on as a sort of servant, and also a merchant that you can buy and sell items to. He has a decent amount of gold, so you won't have to trek to a city to sell things, and he'll also give you free beer and bread if you ask for it. And moving on to the interior side of things, Pinewood Manor has a lovely main entry hall with a cozy fireplace, and a sort of mix of rooms really, with a lounge, dining room, and library that are all just sort of rolled into the same room here. And there's also a small kitchen-like space off to the side, with a small bar and some storage space for you to use. And it's all really fairly nicely decorated. There's a lot of furnishings that have been included with this home. And upstairs, on the upper level, there's a balcony overlooking the main entry hall, and a master bedroom over on the side, which includes a small sort of bathroom-like chamber, and also a small study alcove for writing notes and the like. And there's also a second guest bedroom on the second floor, in case you have company over or you have any companions. And speaking of companions, a rather cool feature of this mod is that it comes with a full complement of guards to protect the manor, and each of these can act as companions. You can command them to follow you or hold position at a particular location, so if you need help clearing a dungeon, for example, your guards can actually go along with you. And sort of the final part of Pinewood Manor is the basement, which is home to a number of bedrooms that can be used by companions that you might have, and naturally some of these are already in use since your guards and servants need a place to sleep as well. And there's also a bit of extra storage down here that you can use for storing items or displaying goods. And just sort of in conclusion, Pinewood Manor has a lot of really nice features. It's a fairly modest sized manor and estate, not overly large, but not particularly small either, with some lovely views of the Jarl Mountains, and there's also some convenience features like a map marker, servants with merchant options, and companion guards. And it is a sort of remote location if you like that sort of thing. It does come at a rather hefty price though, so you might need to save up for this home in order to purchase it. Finally, for our underrated house mod, we have the Well of Lost Souls by Yevic, and this is a fairly different kind of house mod, in that it doesn't really have much of an above surface presence. Really, it's just an old staircase leading down into the darkness below the swampy landscape of Blackwood east of Leowin. And really, it kind of reminds me of a tomb, and for all outward appearances, it basically is a tomb. And even though there's not really much to see above ground, there's still actually a map marker and that you can use, as you can see here, and the commute to Leowin is actually quite short. We're not too far outside the city, so you can easily get back and forth for business purposes if you so desire. And this is probably one of the more unique house mods that we looked at so far. The interior of this underground home is composed of ancient fort ruins surrounding a central courtyard with a kind of creepy and eerie atmosphere to it, with gravestones and curious floating light particles. And of course the courtyard here is a bit flooded with stepping stones leading to each chamber, and all these chambers just sort of join up to the central courtyard here. And there's naturally a master bedroom, including a bathtub that you can use, and a couple of fireplaces to add a little warmth to this, again, sort of creepy home. And really everything about this home just sort of screams an assassin's lair, sort of perfect for Dark Brotherhood type characters. There's also a bit of a magic lab here off to the side, including altars for spellmaking and enchanting, and also a small alchemy station that you can use for creating poisons or something of that nature. And over here in the last chamber connected to this courtyard, you'll find a lounge of sorts, where you can sit in the darkness and enjoy a cozy fireplace in this otherwise rather dank and damp home. And just sort of taking a moment to give a bird's eye view of this home, this Well of Lost Souls is really quite atmospheric, from the shimmering lights to the ruined fort walls and the statuework and the gravestones. This is a really scenic and, again, a sort of creepy and eerie way home for you to use, and I imagine it'd be perfect for darker-themed characters like assassins or thieves or something of that nature. And in conclusion, the Well of Lost Souls has a number of features that'll make it appealing for Dark Brotherhood characters especially. The home is basically hidden from view from the outside world, and it has a really beautiful courtyard as well as basic services like enchanting and spellmaking altars and an alchemy station, and also a map marker with easy access to Leowin. The home is also essentially free to use, you just have to trek out into the Blackwood Wilderness in order to find it. And anyway, that pretty much wraps up everything I have to show you guys in this episode. We'll be back in about a week with another 3 house mods for you guys to check out. And really just thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.